we approached it with a lens of how do we make history honest and how do we consider the historian that wrote the history? Because their perspective, their background is probably going to contribute to what they're looking for.
How to survive the classroom.
Hey, teacher besties. Welcome to How to Survive the Classroom. I am really, really thrilled because this is an episode where we are, in fact, going to have a guest. They are not just sitting in silence right now. The way we are going to format it this season, when I have a guest, is we're going to bring him on a little bit later in the episode so that you and I just have like a chance to vibe and like catch up. But at the end of the episode, when I talk about the resource I'm going to be pointing you towards is Charles Fournier and his new season of his podcast that I'm like obsessed with. He has the first season, and he just now, actually, as this episode is releasing, he is going to be releasing his second season of his podcast called Those Who Can't Teach Anymore, which again, I love. I already had him on the podcast before in season 1. So if you didn't listen to that one yet, you can go back and listen to it, or just stick around because I get to chat with him today. So, but first I have to explain to you how I've been spending my week. And the reason my nails are destroyed, if you are watching this on YouTube, you can probably not even see because it's real rough over here on these streets right now. I have spent this week probably ingesting large amounts of lead via paint fumes and paint chips and all of that. You see, I'm going to be moving very soon, and I decided, because I am very ADHD, that I was like, hey, you know what? It would be great right now is this project that I'm just going to jump right into. I'm just going to take a little deep dive. And all I need to do is just strip the paint off of this door of my current house because I'm trying to get it ready to sell. And I Googled what color doors on houses help it sell quicker. And they said black. And I was like, great. And my door is white. And I was like, all right, well, it's got so many layers of paint on it. It was distractingly bad when I first moved in. Like you could see how they had like moved pieces off and all of that. So I'm like, cool. I'm gonna real quick, famous last words. I'm gonna real quick just go in and just do a little paint removal. Right. And so it started with like this citrus non-toxic one, which peeled all the paint on the interior side. And then the exterior side, it has been a hellscape. And every time I try and summarize this on my Instagram stories, I always say something wrong, like out of order. Like when I first said that I was going to be using the orange citrus strip stuff, I said I put down the plastic and then I put the stripper on it. And I put the plastic over the stripper, and the amount of DMs I'm getting, and I don't know if it's from the paint fumes or it's just that my brain is like so messy right now. Cause it's late spring, we're getting close to summer, and my brain is just constantly trying to make sense of the world around it. So yeah, if you've been following on my Instagram in the past few weeks, then you have absolutely seen the chaos of me attempting to strip this stupid door that is 60 years old and has no less than like 6 layers of paint, one of which I am like 99% sure is lead paint. And the thing is, with lead paint, you're supposed to do like a wet removal is what they call it. And all of these words sound so inappropriate. Like I am talking about like all the different stripper I'm using and like which strippers work the best and work the hardest. And I had to use the most toxic stripper in order for it to work. And the amount of people DM me and they're like, yes, I know her. Like, oh, dang. So it's been quite a journey. And I am one of those people that like grew up with a dad who, if he had a book and enough motivation, he's like, we can do this. Like we can just do it ourselves. And so I've been spending a lot of time regretting my life choices, but at the same time, like I'm not quitting, because do you guys know a new door is like $1,000? It's crazy. So to be continued on that. I will make sure to keep you guys updated on the door fiasco, because that is how I've spent my entire week, is scraping lead paint off of my door and possibly giving myself fatal doses of lead in the meantime. So there you go. You should wear a respirator, by the way. I wore a respirator, but I don't. It wasn't like the one you were supposed to N95 that we were supposed to wear during COVID. It was just like a normal one. So we'll see. If my episodes just start really going off the rails, we know I consumed maybe a bit too much lead. Speaking of off the rails, I am very excited to hear what you guys sent in for me this week. So let's get to the first voice memo.
I'm gonna have to make this short and sweet. So back in '88, I was in the seventh grade. I went to this school that used to be predominantly white. I myself am African American, and I remember one day specifically around the second period, like all these tow trucks, or pickup trucks rather, come up to the school, and and everybody in the pickup trucks were part of the KKK. So they had signs going, "Go home inward." We don't want you in our school, N-word. And I was freaking out because one of my best friends was a kid whose father was outside with the pickup truck. So I went up to my friend. I was going to go up to my friend to ask him what was happening, but he was with his dad out. Well, he went and joined his father because the parents, of those kids asked for their kids to come out. And so they released him out. But then I saw him standing with his dad. So anyway, long story short, it was a massive race war where all the kids were fighting the black kids fighting the white kids. Parents got called, police got called. Some parents were fighting the other guys in the pickup trucks. It was absolute pandemonium. I would never forget that. And Yeah, that was a crazy day. Now, I myself am not an educator. I was just a student. So you said what was the craziest story? That has got to be the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. So. Oh, also enjoy your stuff. You're really funny. Your stories are awesome. Have a great day.
Thank you. I man, it is wild to me because that chunk of history, right? Like I never personally witnessed anyone dressed up in KKK stuff. Like growing up in San Diego, not that it wasn't there, because I think that the Grand Wizard actually lives in Fallbrook, California. But there, like, it always felt very shameful to be associated with the KKK. Like calling someone racist would have been a massive insult um, around the groups that I spent time with and all of that. And it wasn't until I moved out of California and went into some other areas that I realized how much of like a thriving community that can still be in a lot of areas of the country. And I think that has a lot to do with just being naive and the people that my parents surrounded me with and all of that. Um, but I remember my husband telling me, who grew up in Indiana, and he said he was at a friend's house and he went into he went to go grab like a jacket or something out of his friend's closet, and he saw his dad's KKK hood hanging up in there. Um, and it, I can't even imagine for a child. Like you were a little kid and or I assume little kid, middle school or age-ish, having a friend who you hang out with all the time and then seeing them participate in like this aggressive, hateful act. I can't, and to do it at a school is even more stunning to me. Um, to choose as grown adults to come and do such a profound act of hatred towards children is stunning to me. And I would love to say that like, good thing we're past all of that. But I know that for a lot of us, we see the way that that has kind of had ripple effects throughout the years, and how it is fascinating to me because I've had a lot of students who are students of color, and they're so much more willing to have conversations about these things a lot of times than adults are, probably because, you were talking about your friend who was on that truck. Like that friend probably remembers that event as well, and hopefully is deeply shameful about that, and doesn't want to bring that up. And so I think about the way that that kind of like secret shame is following through the generations, and the way that those who experienced it, like you did, remember back, and how that story is going to be shared as well. It's just, it would be nice to say like, well, thank goodness that's not happening anymore, but unfortunately, we know that sometimes it is. But thank you for sharing that experience. I can't imagine as an educator that day, and what it must have been like for those teachers to try and protect the kids, or as a parent, like I. my daughter had someone who wasn't being very nice to her before, and I remember, and it was like minor, like excluding her from playing and saying like, "Oh, we don't want to play with you," like such minor stuff. And I remember it broke my heart. So I can only imagine what it must have been like for parents when it's something that, is so much more violent and scary, and really, really hard to protect your kids from. So that is incredibly tough, but thank you so much for sharing. All right, let's listen to the second voice memo today.
So I teach middle school, and my second year teaching, the school I work at has a policy that you keep all your backpacks in the back of your room. And I had a student about halfway through class, I noticed his backpack was right next to him at his desk. So I told him, hey, make sure you go put that in the back of the room. It's not supposed to be up here. And he was acting kind of weird. And so he walked back to the back of the room and left it sitting in the back of the room where he was supposed to, and came back to his seat. And all of a sudden, the kids that are sitting around where the backpacks are at the back of the room start like giggling and laughing and like looking behind them. And then the kid that had put his backpack up like jumped up and was like, hey, stop looking through my stuff, blah, 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 blah. So I sit them down and I go to one of the kids in the back and I'm like, hey, one of my trusted kids in the back. And I was like, hey, what exactly is going on? What is all the whispering about? What are you doing? And he said, Miss Serrano, there's something in his backpack and it looks like skin. Mind you, this kid has some behavior issues. Um, and so I immediately call up his teacher in the behavior program and I said, hey, I need you to come up here and grab his backpack, check it out for me. So the vice principal comes and gets him, takes his backpack, and I don't see the kid again. And then I hear from his teacher later that the item that they found in the backpack that looked like skin was in fact a female genitalia sex toy in his backpack that he took from dad.
Ugh, it's so it's so much worse that he took his dad's, like, that he didn't go, like, and I guess he's middle schooler, right? So I don't know that there's age limits on those stores, but I mean, you could order stuff online. It's so much worse that it's his dad's. How did they find out it's his? I have so many more questions. I have so many more questions. How did they find out it was his dad's? Did they call and his dad was like, "Ah, yes, that's mine"? Did the kid just say, "That's my dad's"? Because that sounds like something that he would say to try and get himself out of trouble. I I cannot imagine the conversation that night at the dinner table of like, "So, let's talk about what is and is not appropriate to bring to class." Like, that's a deeply disturbing I think that voice memo is exactly what we should be submitting every single time that we go to school boards and say teachers deserve more pay. This is the audio file that we need to submit and be like, "Hey, listen, do you wanna deal with this? No? I didn't think so. We don't either. So hazard pay for what we come in contact with." Because I don't think I would ever recover. Also, she said she didn't see him ever again. Was he, like, expelled for that? Which seems kind of excessive, but, like, or did he just, like, leave in shame? Because I could see that being the appropriate thing, especially if his friends saw it. Like, you had it at the top of your backpack? Uh, Middle schoolers are wild. Our sweet friend of the podcast, Denver, is now working in a middle school, and so she's got the whole experience now because she always taught high school, so now she's living in that middle school life, and she hasn't had to confiscate that yet. So I think that, she's at least doing better than that poor teacher was. I would also love to hear from you guys, by the way, on the most insane things you've confiscated, because that one's pretty wild. And it's clear that that student knew exactly what it was. But I've had a lot of people message me and tell me that they have confiscated things from especially early elementary students, that they brought to school that they like had no idea what it was. Like, personal massage wands and stuff of that nature that they would bring for like show and tell, or, bring it to have like a fidget toy and stuff like that. That like, then you have to have that conversation and call home and be like, hey, something was brought to school today. I would love to hear stories of how you guys handled that because that is insane. I teaching high school, I don't think I ever confiscated any sex toys, thank God. And didn't really have to have many phone calls that were like that. But I had to have like the vape calls, but usually that's admin. Like usually that's what they get paid more to do is just to make those really deeply traumatic phone calls and have to have the conversations about, hey, your kid brought a female rubberized anatomy part to class because you can't call it what we call it for real because that would be insane, right? Right? You probably can't. We don't need to use the alliterative term for it, probably. Um, I don't know how to transition from that to what we're going to next. So we're just gonna do it. The next thing I'm gonna have for you guys is a wonderful conversation with Charles Fournier. It is going to be so fun for you guys to hear what's coming up with his next season of his very, very good podcast. So stay tuned and we will be right back. Welcome back, Teacher Besties. I am so excited because I have a return guest. If you guys listen to season 1 of the podcast, then you will probably recognize this human. Or if you have caught his absolutely incredible podcast that has obnoxiously stayed on the top podcast now for like 2 years, Those Who Can't Teach Anymore, I have Charles Fournier with me.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Now, remind me, when did you initially release your podcast, the first season?
The first season started in 2022, and I think the last episode came out in like March of 2023.
Okay, so it's been like 2.5 years that it has just, and you released, there's how many episodes? 7, 8?
So there's 7 of the first one, and then there's some bonus episodes. So I
Yeah.
think, so like there's bonus episode with you, but yeah, 7 of
Yeah.
the original series.
Yeah, which is incredible that like for those who are like not involved in podcasting at all, maybe don't know. It's number one, it's very difficult to get on the list to begin with because there's just so many podcasts. Everybody has a podcast, right? But then on top of that, for it to be a podcast that is about education and a podcast that you released those episodes, and then that's pretty much like you haven't, other than what's coming very soon, which I'm very excited about, you haven't like continuously weekly produced more podcasts, which is usually, or more episodes of that podcast, which is usually how people stay on the rankings. It's just that your podcast hit such a note with so many people that it's just been this incredible word of mouth thing where people listen to it and they're like, I know so many people that need to hear this. So how did you go from season 1, which you guys should all go back, listen to the first episode I had with Charles, because we talk a ton about his first season. But how did you go about going from season 1 and exploring why teachers leave and the nuances there to now going into season 2?
There are a few things. So I have a buddy, his name's Cooper McKim, and he was another podcast guy, and I hung out with him. And I was like, hey, man, look, this podcast, it did okay. He's like, all right, cool, do another season. And I was like, oh no, okay. And so I was trying to think of ideas about what a second season would look like that wasn't just repetitive. And I've always really liked the idea of like long form journalism. And I'm not really a journalist. I try my best, and I got journalist friends that I like show them, and then they tell me what's wrong. Um, and so I was really interested because, that podcast came out and it didn't change the world. People are still having a hard time in education. So I feel like some of that's coming from having misconceptions about what the classroom actually looks like.
Mhm.
And I think this goes back to looking at pop culture, and all the representations of teachers are, they're extreme. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to give really a year in the life of teachers and show what this looks like from their perspective, and to show that it's a slog, and it's maybe not as romantic as people think. And when folks are saying, "Oh, they're indoctrinating," really, it's a little bit more boring than that. Like we're just trying to keep folks in their chairs and not killing each other. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to hear teachers' experiences. So I put out a call on social media. And then I went and touched base with folks that I knew. Like I had a former student that was going to be a first year teacher, and I have a buddy who is going to retire. And I was like, okay, I want people all over the spectrum. And so I ended up with 15 teachers across the teaching spectrum, across the country. And we have folks that love it, folks that hate it. We have pre-K all the way up to senior level. And then we have a couple teachers that this is their first year out of the classroom. And so I
Mm.
had them all keep audio journals of their school year. And so this next season is going to be a compilation of their school year. And so it's been a lot. It was like 300 audio journals and like 60 hours of audio that I've listened to at least twice now, and trying to find the through line. And
Yeah.
I feel like part of my, I don't know, the theme for this season comes from a Susan Glassbill play called Trifles. And one of the lines in the play is it's about actually these two women who are trying to cover for their friend who killed her husband in the prairie of like Nebraska.
Okay.
But they're covering for each other because like, oh no, I know what it's like to be in like an abusive situation. But this line that I think is so fitting for teachers is we live close together, we live far apart, we experience the same things, it's just a different kind of the same thing. And so I'm trying to show that really teachers across the country, even across the world, are experiencing very much the same thing. And so often, especially after that first season, folks don't realize they are.
Yeah.
That first season, a lot of people reached out and said, this was really validating. And some were like, in 20 plus years of teaching, I never felt like other people are experiencing what I was experiencing. And
Yeah.
so the second season is really trying to do that and saying, here's August through July, and here are all the things that they go through.
Yeah, so I got a little sneak peek and you let me listen to some of the early episodes, and it was really exciting to hear the voice of a first year teacher. But I'm not gonna lie, I am really nervous to listen to the rest because she sounded so excited and so full of joy in life. And you kind of you tease it a little bit at the beginning where you're like, you're gonna hear what it feels like, because I remember that first day teaching and you're just like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to, oh, captain, my captain, it's going to be incredible. I am going to obviously change everything in education single-handedly. And you have to have some level of that. Otherwise, you're not going to get into education, right? Like
Right.
that is the struggle I have with a lot of my students, where I want them to be grounded in the reality of how challenging the classroom is, but not in a way that crushes their spirit or makes them not want to teach or any of that stuff. When you were talking about how you approached this, I hope you realize that what you essentially did was a dissertation. And you should have gone to some sort of university and been like, "Hey, actually I'm doing this," which is almost exactly the format. I mean, I guess you didn't have to go through an IRB proposal or any of that, but that sounds so much like dissertations that I've heard, where you're taking this huge swath of people, you're exploring this concept in depth, you're synthesizing all this information. You should just submit the links to someone and be like, "Will you guys give me an honorary doctorate?" Because
I mean, if you know people, that'd be wonderful.
I should. I should
I've
just
had,
start sending it to everyone at my university and be like, "Hey,
uh,
he's basically already done the work. Can we just
yeah.
help a guy out?"
Oh man. So this is kind of on this part of like doing the podcast and doing the research and then coming back and trying to share it in a form that's accessible, like that people actually listen to. The guy that's actually doing my music, he did my theme song, and he's doing all the music for my second season. Good friend of mine, Julian Saporiti, and he went and got a dissertation, and he went and got a PhD at Brown. And for his dissertation, he wrote records because he's a musician. And so, like, he's talking about Japanese or Asian American experience through music because he's like, nobody's going to read my book. And I feel like that's how we gotta how to get this stuff out. I feel like you do it with comedy and all the things you're doing. It just otherwise, folks aren't going to pay attention if we wrote even the best book ever.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is I have a dissertation and I can see how many people have cited it. And let me tell you, it's not doing numbers like the way my videos do. Even though, like you said, the comedy that I do is very much in the same through line as what you're doing, just coming at it from a different angle, where trying to get people to kind of feel seen and feel like they've
Mhm.
got, somebody else in the world is dealing with the same things that they are. Um And I do that kind of is the guy who does your music, is he the same one that did the other podcast with you as well?
Yeah, yeah,
Do you
he
wanna
is.
share about that? Because I, devoured that podcast so quickly, you guys, it's so, so good. So what remind me what that one is called?
Yeah, it's called the Historians Table. Um, and so me and Julian, we have this other friend named Diego Javier Luis. He's now a professor at Johns Hopkins. I think he was at Tufts before when he wrote his book. But he wrote a book called The First Asians in the Americas, right? I know.
Yeah, that's like,
And
the small potatoes, obviously,
yeah,
like, just casually
yeah.
at Johns Hopkins.
And then yeah, and he's such a great guy. And his book is wonderful, but it's like an academic, it could be a textbook.
Mhm.
And so Julian got us all together and he said, "Hey, I think," to Diego, he's like, "I think you should make a podcast and I think we can make this more accessible." And so we approached it with a lens of how do we make history honest and how do we consider the historian that wrote the history? Because their perspective, their background is probably going to contribute to what they're looking for. And so
Yeah.
Diego, he's Afro-Cuban, Chinese, and Jewish, and he grew up in Tennessee, and he never felt like he belonged. And so we kind of follow his story of like traveling around, going to Spain, going to China, and every place he went, he's like, "Crap, I don't belong here either." And so we see this arc of him trying to figure out where he belongs as he's doing this research of people that are, um, on this trans-Pacific trade between the Philippines to Mexico. And it's I think it's exciting to
It
follow
is.
Diego's experience and to see how that impacts his research and his writing. And then Julian's there to be a good foil and make fun of Diego as we
Yeah.
go. So
And I will say for any history teachers, I think it would be an incredible resource, like just as like something additional to give kids to hang on to, because I think one of the challenges with teaching social studies in general is that there feels like there's such a big separation, right? There's a huge gap between what happened, 300 years ago and what we're dealing with today, and it did such a good job of bringing it to the current in a way that was, again, very nuanced. And I feel like that is one of the things that I really struggle with being on social media and short form videos and stuff like that, is there's not really room for nuance and there's not really room for conversation. Like I put out a video, people take it how they take it, and then that's kind of it. Because if I do, and I have before, I've done a video where I've like done a follow up and like, hey, let's talk about this like nuanced part of it, and it doesn't, no one ever sees it, and people don't really engage with it in the same kind of way. And the historians table just did such a good job of being so honest about, number one, the experiences of your co-creators, and about looking at the nuance of these historical figures in a way that I think was I you know it didn't come off as an indictment on any of them. It came off as just factually like, this is who this person was, but they were also this. And those things coincided, just like with all of us. We all have a lot of different elements to our lives and our personalities. And I thought it was really, really powerful.
thank you. I'm glad. We like making it. So
Yeah, it was really fun. Is there going to be any chance that there's going to be a second one of those seasons coming out or?
it's this is you heard it on that first episode. I need to pause on some podcast projects because I say
Yeah,
yes to everything.
right?
So yes, in the future we're thinking of doing more. We're right now kind of shopping around trying to find folks that have good stories, good historians, and also looking for some grants and funding to be
Yeah.
able to get something done.
Yeah, and that is
So
great that
yes,
you're
hopefully, but it'll be a bit.
right. Yeah. And that's great that you're working with people that are already plugged into the universities that potentially could kind of help with funding by grants and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
it is really interesting being in the university space now and seeing how, as kind of the old guard starts to retire and we have people that are closer to our age in like leadership and stuff like that, there is starting to be a recognition about the power of podcasts and social media and the power of narrative storytelling and the acknowledgement that no one else is reading peer-reviewed journals. Like, like if you want to change culture and all of that, like
Yeah.
peer-reviewed articles generally are not gonna, it's not gonna be that. And
No.
that's been really cool for me to see as I started at the university. And they actually changed some of the policies about how they tenure professors because they recognized that like my contributions to culture and discussions around education are very different from some of my colleagues. But are not without value. And
Right.
that was very surprising to me. I don't know, like, especially, I don't know how your experience was with K-12 and having a platform and all of that. But I was always very much told, like, to stay in line and not make waves. And was very, very fortunate when I was starting out this journey that I was at a school that, didn't hate it, and I was still small enough, I kinda got away with it. I don't know that I still could if I had the kind of audience I do now, um, but I don't know. Now, remind me, because I know that you were teaching high school English, right?
Mhm.
And then the podcast came out. Are you still teaching high school English, or where are you at these
No,
days?
I'm still teaching English, but at a community college.
Okay,
So, I was doing concurrent enrollment for this school, and so a job opened. So it's pretty much the same stuff I was teaching at the high school. I'm just at a new building,
awesome, okay.
which is exciting, and I don't have to break up fights.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Yeah.
Most of my audience are K-12 teachers, and I think it would be interesting for them to hear the perspective of what the biggest things are that you miss and the things that you don't miss moving from like K-12 into now a community college space.
So I think the biggest thing, I feel like when you're in K-12, the students really need you. And that relationship you build is really strong. And you can see just the joy of students when they come in your room or the absolute like loathing of coming into your room. There's these
Yeah.
extremes of, they love you or they hate you. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so you have that extreme emotion. And I think I didn't realize until I was at the college that I really feed off of that,
Mhm.
that I get a lot of energy from the students and then going into the college setting where I'm just a stepping stone. I'm part of the gen ed courses, and I build good relationships with folks still, but it's just not the same as the high school setting. And it's kind of like it's a compromise, right? I'm not getting the extreme excitement, but I'm also again not getting the kids that are cussing me out.
Yeah.
I have pretty even keel folks, a lot of adults, a lot of people coming back to school after, working in other jobs or having several kids or um, being in the military. And so it's a different audience. And I'm really enjoying that audience because I get to be a cheerleader for them. These are folks
Yeah.
that maybe had a bad experience in school. And now I get to be like, no, screw those guys. You're going to be awesome.
Right.
You're like, I'm here to help you out.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the biggest things is that relationship piece.
Yeah.
But also, this kind of feels wild. I'm in a school or in a setting where I'm one of the few people with an education background and an education degree. Um, I am trusted far more there than I ever was at the high school. And so I'm in a space where they recognize my expertise in a way that I don't know. I had good principals, I had good folks I worked with, but just community wise, I didn't feel like the support was there
Mhm.
and I can teach what I want. I asked, "Hey, are you gonna ever censor my books?" And they're like, "No, if they don't like your books, then just don't take your class."
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm carrying a lot of baggage, and I have the chair of my department. I've talked to her a lot about this, where I had to have a couple meetings because there were some weird situations with plagiarism. And going into those meetings, I just felt kind of this, oh crap, what am I going to have to give up? Or what am I going to have to do? Am I going to get chewed out? Because I've had so many experiences where I wasn't really backed up and just got eaten alive in a meeting. And it was awesome. The meeting was great. And as soon as somebody kind of got a little bit fired up, she was like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, we'll stop the meeting if that's the case. And it was just, I think I'm trying to get used to having freedom when I've been micromanaged, having trust when I haven't been trusted. Um, and so that's new.
Yeah.
And so there are things like I miss the kids. I miss
Yeah.
my buddies. I miss teaching my brother. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the fact that my cortisol levels are like not crazy every day. And the noise. Oh, there's no noise. Um, it's so good. Like I open my door and it's silent.
Yeah.
And I go in and I talk to people and they're talking in a normal voice.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
ears aren't ringing at the end of the day. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, my experience has been very, very similar to yours. And I also, I don't know if you feel like this, but I also have a layer of guilt about making that transition, especially since my content is very much like talking about the experience of teachers. And I don't think it's a surprise or an accident that I have, tripled or quadrupled my audience since making this transition because I've had the energy to be able to make content. more consistently and all of that kind of stuff. And I, again, same as you, I absolutely miss that relationship with my students. And people are like, well, you teach college. And I'm like, they don't need me. Like, and I mean that in like the best possible way. Like I teach juniors and like in college. So the kids who maybe might have needed me, they probably dropped out or are not in this program at this stage. Like the ones who I
Mhm.
maybe could have helped as freshmen, like they're gone. The kids who like, you really do build such tight relationship with kids when you see them every day. You bring like little Billy over there. He looks big and tough and is like a huge football player, but I know that like he has a really rough home life, and so I make sure that he
Mhm.
has a Pop Tart every morning, or like things like that that like just don't really exist in the same way just within the college space, because like you said, like you're there. Um, One of the things I did realize though, in this space was that I, as a high school teacher, right, I was like their biggest cheerleader and was like, "You've got this. It's going to be amazing. You're going to go change the world." And I would like push them towards whatever it was that they wanted to do. And I never thought that at some point there has to be somebody who's a gatekeeper of like, do they actually have either A, the intellectual ability to do these things, the social skills, the literal ability to get there, or the discipline to get to whatever it is. And now I'm on the college professor side, and I've had to sit with students and be like, hey, I'm not sure that this is the track for you. And I've never thought I would have to do that, because I've always just been like, you can do this. Of course you can do this. And what I found is that it's not that these students can't do it. It's that it's like very clear that like they don't actually want to put the work in to do it. And it's been very hard for me to be the person that's like, "Hey, are you sure? Like if you want to do this, I'll do everything I can to support you, but." And I had to have a conversation, fairly recently where I was like, "So do you actually want to be a teacher?" And the student was like, "Ah, you know." I was like,
Oh,
"What are you doing? Go make money somewhere." Like, because it's a hard job even if you really want to do it.
right.
Um, so yeah, that's good to hear that I'm not alone in the things that I miss with K-12 and all of that, because and I think that for teachers that want to make that transition, because I get that question a lot from people, because they hear low cortisol levels and they hear the respect, because that's something else I definitely have experienced as well, is like a lot more respect, a lot more flexibility and freedom in your schedule, and all of those things are absolutely incredible. I do want to clarify that a lot of people think it also comes with a massive pay increase, and
Oh,
all
no, it's
right, it's down. It's
yeah,
down. It's less
yeah,
for a lot of people, and so I do think that people, like, if you're doing it just to make more money, don't.
right,
If you're just looking to make more money, go into admin, but then you're working all year, and that job sounds honestly so terrible to me that I never would.
right. No,
Um,
there's no way now. There's
yeah,
absolutely not.
yeah, it's not like, and I remember people telling me that, but before I got my doctorate, and I was like, "Shut up! Like, I'm gonna make more money." No, they were right. It's all right though. Like, it's
I feel
fine.
like though, I feel like I'm getting paid for what I'm doing now though.
Yeah,
Like I feel like the compensation is fair, and like I took a pay cut, but it's also um I have like we don't have things on Fridays. We teach 4 days a week, and then Fridays can be school meetings or things. So I end up spending all day Friday grading
yeah,
and or planning, or if I have meetings, I do that. But then the weekend is mine. Like I don't,
yeah.
still an English teacher, still have papers all the time, but I'm not really grading on the weekend, and that's tremendous. And I will take a pay cut to have my weekends back.
Right, which I think again goes back to some of the nuance and stuff that you talk about in your podcast, where it's not just pay, right? It's other
Hmm.
things as well that educators are dealing with. And I also want to say, I don't want anyone to think that listening to the podcast is depressing at all, because I have a vivid memory of I was sitting cleaning my daughter's room, listening to your first season of your podcast, and I just like I stopped and was just like listening and just feeling so seen, and hearing some of the criticisms of like the larger conversation said out loud was really powerful. And so I just want to encourage people that, like, if you're frustrated and you're feeling like people aren't understanding the life of a teacher, the experience of teachers. This is a resource I absolutely recommend. Go and listen to his podcast, both the last season, and since I got a sneak peek, I can tell you the next season's also going to be incredible. And I'm really, really excited just as a fan to listen to it and enjoy it, because you do a really good job of like weaving the narrative together and doing all of that. And so I'm really excited to get to just, are you going to release episodes week by week, or am I going to get to binge?
It'll be bi-weekly. So it's such a bear. And this is my fault in not knowing how to manage my time and thinking like, yeah, that won't take that long. I thought I was going to be done in September. And then I was like January, and not even close.
Mhm.
So there's going to be 11 episodes. We have a handful in the can right now. I know how they're all going to be laid out, but it's just, boy, it's a long process of making. But
Yeah.
hopefully they're good. Like these folks spent time recording journals. Like I want to do them justice. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to make sure it's good. So yeah, bi-weekly. I'm hoping to have some stuff in between.
Okay.
So there might be like a little mini episode in between those.
Awesome.
But yeah, the full episode's 2 weeks. Sorry.
That's all right. I guess I can wait if I have to.
God, fine.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much again, Charles, for coming. Guys, please, please, please go listen to his podcast. It is so good. It will make you feel seen and heard in a way that I think is really special. So thank you again, Charles.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will be right back. All right, guys, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Charles. As you can tell, I try not to fangirl too much when he comes on the podcast, but I genuinely am just such a fan of the work that he does with both of his podcasts, and I'm sure of all of the rest of his podcasts that he has coming out in the very near future. So please do go check those out. They are nourishing to the soul. It helped me feel very, very seen in a way that few podcasts can. So definitely check those out. If you have reactions about today's episode, or you want to suggest somebody to come on, then you can contact me, Andrea at human-content.com, or you can contact me at Educator Andrea, or you can contact the whole Human Content Podcast family on Instagram or TikTok at Human Content Pods. And we do have a book club still on our Patreon. It is absolutely so much fun. We are right now choosing the book for the next round. So I'm very, very excited about that. If you want to be a part of that choice and join the book club, you can join at patreon.com/those who can read. And thank you so much to those of you guys who have left reviews. I really appreciate it. I read every single one. And I really hope that if you haven't, then you get on it and get over there and leave me a review. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to check out the full video episodes, they're up every single week on YouTube. And you can check out how busted my nails are from attempting to get lead paint off of my door. So you don't want to miss that. It's good stuff. And a lot of times this tile behind me falls off, sometimes on my head. So you don't want to miss that either. It would be a real shame if it fell during an episode and you missed out on that. That would be tragic. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm your host, Andrea Forkham. Our executive producers are Andrea Forkham, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brooke. Our editor is Andrew Sims. Our engineer is Jason Pertizzo. Our music is by Omer Benzvi. Our recording location is the Indiana State by College of Education. To learn more about our How to Survive the Classroom's program disclaimer and ethics policy and submission, verification, and licensing terms, you can go to podcasterandrea.com. How to Survive the Classroom is a Human Content production.
How to survive the classroom.
Thank you so much for watching. Want more of How to Survive the Classroom? You can watch more episodes right now. Just click on that little box over there. You see it? And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Okay, bye.